Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome. I'm so thrilled that you're here. This is going to be life-changing. I just know it. Let me share my screen. You're going to learn all about the imposter syndrome today, and we're going to talk a lot about confidence. So here's our agenda. I'm going to be talking about who I am, giving an introduction. I'll tell you all about the imposter syndrome, what it is, who has it, where it comes from. And then I'm going to teach you all about confidence. So if you've ever felt like you wanted more confidence, this is everything you need to know to be more confident. And then at the end, if any of this rings true and you feel like, you know what, I really could use some coaching, I'll teach you, or I'll tell you how to get some coaching by me. So this is me. In case you forget what I look like, here's a picture of me. I've had such a fun career. I've been a Salesforce certified system administrator. I was a certified Scrum Master. Try explaining that one to your grandma. I then moved into being an Agile trainer. So I was training people on the Agile process, and I'd give them like 5-day training. And then I moved into a learning and development role. I was fortunate enough to build an onboarding program that we put 250 people through in a year and a half. And I was able to build a team there. It was super fun. And then I transitioned into training new managers and coaching new managers. And as I was doing that, I was like, this is what I want to do. I love working with new managers and teaching them simple tools and tactics that they can use immediately to feel more comfortable in their role and to feel more confident in their role. And from there, I moved into sales enablement. And again, I was working with new managers and coaching them one-on-one. And I was like, this is really what I want to do. So in February, I started my own business, Deibert Coaching LLC. Decided to go with something original, and I coach people, and it's so fun and so rewarding. So let's dive right in. What is the imposter syndrome? Any guesses? This is what the imposter syndrome actually was kind of named in the 70s, and this is what the creators of it said. They said it's a psychological pattern in which people doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent, often internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. So this is from Wikipedia. The interesting thing about the imposter syndrome is that the people who named it, they were studying high-performing women and trying to figure out what was this thing that they kept seeing over and over. So they named it the imposter syndrome. It's not like a psychological, like mental disorder. It's just a feeling that people have. And later on, they said that they wish they would have named it the imposter effect. Because like you feel it sometimes, you don't feel it other times. It's not like you're doomed for the rest of your life to feel like an imposter. So keep that in the back of your mind as we talk about this. So who does it affect? Any guesses out there? What percentage of people are affected by the imposter syndrome? You had to guess. It's like 0.5%, right? You're the only person who's ever felt it. Interestingly, 70% of people have felt the imposter syndrome at one time or another. It's pretty rampant. And that's such a relief for most people to hear because they're not the only ones. I remember when I first became a manager, I looked to my manager and she always knew what to do. She always knew the right answer. She always just kind of like had a vision of how things were going to happen. And I remember thinking, I wish that was me. Like I cannot wait until I get to the point where I just know, and I just know what to do. And right now I'm just making it up and people are going to figure out that I'm just making it up. And then it finally dawned on me after a while, everybody is making it up. Every single person is making it up. 70% of people feel like they're making it up at one time or another. So you don't have to worry. Everybody else feels it too. So it falls pretty evenly between men and women, but it is more people who are the minority are more susceptible to feeling it, whether they're the minority by race or the minority by gender, they're more susceptible to it. So what does it look like? It looks like you feel like a fake. So you feel like you're faking it and people are going to figure you out. There's a person, Michael, I don't know how to say his last name, Uslan. He has produced all of the modern Batman films. I mean, you've probably heard of Batman, right? So he's a pretty prolific producer, and he's reported that every time he gets on the studio, he still has this nagging feeling in the back of his mind that security is going to come and kick him off set because they found out that he doesn't know what he's doing. Isn't that funny? Even somebody like that. Another way that the imposter syndrome shows up is you blame it all on luck. If you feel like, I was just in the right place at the right time, people who gave me this promotion were like under the influence of something. They actually weren't, they weren't in their right minds at the time that they gave me this promotion. If you feel like that's you're blaming it all on luck, then that is another way that the imposter syndrome shows up. So another story about this, every year they ask the incoming class at Stanford. Have you heard of Stanford? It's like an up and coming university, right? No, it's like one of the world-renowned universities. So they ask the incoming class at Stanford to, like, they're all in an auditorium. They say, okay, everybody close your eyes. Raise your hand if you think you were the one application that slipped in the pile and you actually shouldn't be here. Can you guess how many people raise their hand? It's about 2/3 of the audience that say, yes, I'm the one that shouldn't be here. It was just lucky. Somehow my application slipped through. Like, they go through such a rigorous application process, and they're people who have performed so well and have all of this amazing academic and non-academic history, and they think that it's just luck. Isn't that crazy? The last one is downplaying everything. So my favorite story about this is, so if this is you, then you're someone who, somebody compliments you and they're like, oh, that was such a cool thing that you did. And you're like, no. Oh, it was nothing. Like, it wasn't that hard. Anybody could have done it. It was no big deal. So you just downplay, like, oh, no, you don't understand. Like, I'm not anything special. Anybody could have done it. So my favorite story about this one is there's a woman, Valerie Young, who has studied the imposter syndrome and has written books about it. And she said that there was once somebody that she met who was a man who did a PhD in rocket science. And after he finished his PhD in rocket science, people congratulated him, and he was like, oh, no, it was no big deal. Really, anybody could have done it. A PhD in rocket science? There's no way. So if any one of these feels like you, don't worry, you're not alone. So what causes the imposter syndrome? At this point, you might be kind of frustrated, like, why am I self-sabotaging? Why am I doing this to myself? So the first thing that causes the imposter syndrome is if you feel like you are the one and only in the room. So maybe you're the only one of your gender in the room, maybe you're the only one of your race in the room, or some other distinguishing thing. Maybe you're the only one who didn't go to college, or the only one who, whatever. You found some way to make yourself the minority, and you feel like you're the only one, and you shouldn't be here. So you feel like an imposter. So that's like our friend, a cute friend, the zebra here, which I love this picture, because don't you feel the same way? You feel like you're the only one. You feel really bad about yourself. And so you just put your head down and just stuff your feelings down with food, trying to feel better. It's a great picture. Meanwhile, those mean giraffes are talking about him, right? The second thing that causes the imposter syndrome is, if you haven't read this book, I highly, highly recommend it. It's called Mindset by Carol Dweck. She talks about how there's two mindsets. There's a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset is something that you have if your parents and the people who raised you and your teachers and everyone complimented you for your characteristics. So they were very well intentioned to tell you that you were smart, you're so good at math, you're beautiful, you're funny. And so if you are told your entire life, wow, you're really good at math, you're really good at math, you're really good at math, that becomes part of your identity. Oh, I'm just somebody who's good at math. And then if you take a math test and fail it, then your whole identity is shaken. Like, oh no, I thought I was good at math, but I just took this test and I failed it. So I must not be good at math. That must not be who I am. And so people with a fixed mindset kind of put themselves in this box of like, okay, I'm somebody who's good at math, and I'm just never going to push myself outside of what I know I can prove and what I know I won't fail at. So these people are really afraid of failing, and they want to make sure that like they're consistently trying to prove that they're good at math, but they won't push themselves beyond what they know that they can succeed at. Where on the opposite side, the growth mindset happens when people feel like their knowledge and their skills are not limited. basically. Like, you can learn anything and you can continue to grow. So these are people who have been complimented based on their effort instead of their characteristics. So instead of saying, wow, you're really smart, that would be complimenting a characteristic. They were told, wow, you worked really hard at that. Hey, look, you tried a bunch of different ways. You found a bunch of ways that didn't work, and you found a way that did work. I'm really proud of you for like keep trying. So growth mindset people aren't afraid to fail because they know that even if they fail, it's just another way to learn. They're learning ways that work. They're learning ways that don't work. They're still learning and they're still growing. And they don't believe that their skills and their talents and their knowledge is fixed. They believe that they can continue to grow. So if you feel like either of those ring true to you, I know when I read it, I was like, 110% I'm fixed, which is a very fixed mindset thing to say. And after reading the book, thinking a lot more about it, working on it, putting the principles into work, I'm like, no, failure actually sounds pretty fun because I get to learn a lot. So it's possible. Okay, so at this point, you're like, all right, great. I don't have the imposter syndrome, but I maybe know somebody who does. Or maybe you do feel like you have the imposter syndrome. You're totally bought in. You understand why we have it, who it affects. So what do we do about it? Okay, here's where it gets so good. Let's talk about confidence. I love, love, love this. Okay, so if you had to define confidence, what would you define confidence as? What is it? Here's what my coach, Brooke Castillo, says about confidence. She says, confidence is being secure in yourself. It's trusting yourself. It's knowing that you can experience any emotion, including failure, without being harmed. We're going to talk more about this. And lastly, it's your overall opinion of yourself. What do you think? Do you agree? Is there anything missing from this list? So, why don't we have confidence? We don't trust ourselves. We feel out of control, and we let ourselves down consistently. So these all kind of go together. So if you're someone who is like, yes, I'm totally going to do that. I'm totally going to, you know what? You're right. I'm going to sign up for this half marathon and I'm going to train for it. It's going to be great. We're going to do it. And then you don't do it, or whatever the case may be. It's probably not a half marathon, or maybe it is. But then you don't do it. You let yourself down. And so you don't trust yourself. Like, well, I might say that I'll do something else, but I haven't in the past. So what makes me think that I will do it? So you feel out of control. You feel like even if I say I'll do something, I don't always do it. And so that's why you don't have confidence. So the last one is that we are afraid to feel our emotions. We're like, well, no, if I say that, or if I put myself out there, if I send that email, I might feel really embarrassed. Like, it's an email to so many different people and I might feel really embarrassed. I don't want to feel that way because it feels awful. I hate feeling embarrassed. So I'm just going to hold myself back. So I want to point out to you that your brain is programmed to find the negative. Let me repeat that. Your brain is programmed to find the negative. Your brain is out there looking for everything that is going wrong. And it's actually a wonderful thing. All of our brains are programmed to do this. This has kept us alive. Your brain can look out there and it can see a saber-toothed tiger. And it's like, whoop, there's a saber-toothed tiger. Mel Robbins talks about this in her book, The 5-Second Rule. It's called the spotlighting effect. Your brain sees something that's risky and it blows it up so that it's right in front of your vision so that you don't take action because it might kill you. The only problem with this is that our brains don't realize that there aren't saber-toothed tigers out there and that giving that presentation or sending that email is not going to kill you. It still feels really risky, so your brain makes it a really, really big thing, but it's not going to kill you. And so all you have to do is just be like, brain, hey, thank you so much. You're doing your job. You're doing it great. Don't worry. I've got this. It's not going to kill us. It's going to be fine. Trust me. So trusting yourself, what does that look like? Trusting yourself is doing what you said you would do. So this has been going through my head quite a bit lately. I love the way that my coach talks about this. She says, you do the responsible and useful thing for yourself, even when you don't feel like it. So I want you to pick something that you're going to be consistent at. Maybe it's that every day you're going to drink 2 glasses of water. Something that you know you can be consistent at. Something that's useful and responsible, and you're going to do it every single day, consistently. So it's following through on your plan. It's taking care of yourself. And I love what she says. It's doing the responsible and useful thing for yourself, even when you don't feel like it. That will allow you to trust yourself. So self-doubt is the opposite of trusting yourself. I love what she says here too. It's saying you will do something and hoping that you follow through. Isn't that funny to think about? It's like so silly, but yet we do it all the time. Like, oh yes, I'm totally going to do that. I hope, right? I hope that I do that. I don't just like either say, no, I'm not going to do that because you know you won't, or say, yes, I'm committing and I will do that. That will help you trust yourself. So if you can't count on yourself, you'll feel less secure and you'll feel like you're at the effect of yourself instead of being in charge and responsible. Like, I'm not really in charge. I doubt myself all the time. I haven't been consistent before. And so I'm just kind of at the effect, like I hope that I do it. So lastly, I want to point out that we aren't born with self-confidence, which is kind of great news. You see other people out there and they're like, oh, they're just naturally self-confident. And I'm just not a naturally self-confident person. Well, guess what? They aren't naturally self-confident. The only reason that they portray themselves as confident is because they have shown up for themselves and consistently done what they said they would do. So you earn self-confidence through keeping your word. It's doing what you say you will do at the highest level. I'm going to do that, and yes, I will do it. And it doesn't mean you have to say yes to everything. What I've done is I'm like, okay, I'm going to be super rigorous about saying no to a bunch of things so that the things that I do say yes to, I know I will do. All right. Knowing you can experience any emotion. So I want you to think right now about something that is terrifying for you, or something that's really scary. I always use the example of public speaking because it's like the fear of most people. I'm not afraid to public speak. I don't know what's different about me, but I love it. So I can't relate, but I know that most of you can. So think about public speaking. It's something you're probably really scared of. And I want you to think about the worst possible scenario. You're up there, you're public speaking, things go terribly wrong, and all of a sudden they start throwing tomatoes at you because everybody brings tomatoes to public speeches, right? Everybody. Just kidding, they don't. I mean, at least none that I've been to. I should start bringing some just to make it even worse. I had one person, as I was giving this presentation, say, no, the worst that can happen is that you screw up majorly and it's filmed and it goes viral. I was like, okay, that's a good one. Okay, so we're imagining it's the worst case scenario. I want to offer to you that the very worst thing that can happen is an emotion. Think about that. The very worst thing that can happen is an emotion. So the very worst thing is not that you screw up your speech. The very worst thing is that you screw up and then you feel embarrassed, or you feel disappointed, or you feel ashamed. What we're most afraid of is actually an emotion. Does that change things for you? It's kind of interesting to think about it that way. The very worst thing that can happen in any scenario is an emotion. Have you ever felt disappointment before? Sorry, loud car. Have you ever felt disappointment before? Did it kill you the last time you felt it? Obviously, yes. Could you feel disappointment again and not die? Have you ever felt ashamed before? Did it kill you? No. So what if you felt it again? Do you think it would kill you the next time? No. So emotions are what my coach calls a chemical cascade through your body. I just watched In and Out again, or sorry, Inside Out, the movie last week. And sorry, In and Out. Oh man, now I'm getting hungry. Inside Out. So I love thinking that there's like people in my brain that are like, okay, just program this thing, program this thing. So you can imagine anytime something happens, your brain is like, oh, cue disappointment, beep, 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 boop, and they push the buttons, and then your brain sends a message to your body, and your body produces chemicals or hormones that cause the feeling of disappointment. So whenever you're feeling one of those things, all you have to do is just sit back and just feel it. My stomach feels kind of in knots. My heart is racing. My throat feels like it's tightening up a little bit. I kind of have a headache. So just sit and feel, what does that emotion feel like? And the crazy thing is, once you like listen to it and you feel it, it usually goes away pretty quick. And then you die, obviously. Just kidding. Haven't died yet. Keep your fingers crossed for me. Okay. So when we are willing to feel and process emotions, which processing emotion just means to sit and name the emotion, feel where you feel it in your body, and just let it flow through you, then we'll be flooded with self-confidence. You know that you can feel any emotion and not die. So what's the worst that could happen? I might put myself out there, I might feel an emotion and not die. But maybe I get something cool from putting myself out there. All right, whoops. So your opinion of yourself. What you think about yourself either generates or depletes confidence. Your thoughts are what cause all of your feelings. So if you're thinking, try this with me. Think the thought, I'm such a failure. Do you feel worse? I just offered you a thought. You had one sentence go through your brain. And for me, like my chest feels tighter, my shoulders feel heavier. Oh, it feels awful, right? I just gave you that thought and you felt that feeling. So now think a thought like, I am good. I'm worthy. I'm awesome. I'm capable. I'm strong. I'm competent. We're going to talk into beliefs in just a minute. I had somebody in one of these presentations say, that one didn't come as easily. The I'm such a failure came so quickly, and that one didn't work as well. It didn't feel as believable. We'll talk about beliefs here in just a minute. Isn't it so interesting that you can think one sentence in your head and that causes your feelings? So self-confidence is a feeling, and feelings are caused by your thoughts. If you're thinking thoughts like, I'm such a failure, I don't want to disappoint people, I don't want to fail again, I'm not good at this, that is going to deplete your self-confidence. If you think thoughts like, hey, I'm actually kind of good at this, or this is kind of fun, that is going to generate your self-confidence. So if you struggle with this, if this is something you struggle with, especially considering the imposter syndrome, then what I want you to do is I want you to write down everything you admire about yourself. Don't stop until you get to at least 15. And if you feel like you particularly struggle with the imposter syndrome, I want you to write down all of your accomplishments. And anytime you start to feel like an imposter, I want you to look at that list of accomplishments. Someone pointed out the imposter syndrome is so interesting because you only feel it when you're really successful. Isn't that so funny? Like, you're doing so awesome, and that's when you feel like an imposter. All right, so at this point you might be thinking, well, I mean, it sounds great, but I hate arrogant people, and I don't want to be that person. So let me clarify for you the difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance is thinking that you're better than someone else and trying to prove it. Arrogance comes from creating a false self-confidence by putting others down. Like, well, I'm better than that person, so obviously I'm better. Arrogance is comparing and competing, and it comes from fear. And arrogance comes from a scarcity mentality. So what that means is that there's a pie. There's one pie. And if I take a piece of the pie, then there's less pie for you. And so you've got to try to take as many pieces as you can. So you're comparing and competing, trying to put other people down so that you can feel better about yourself. Confidence comes from an abundance mentality. Confidence is that everybody is awesome, including me. There's enough awesome for you. There's enough awesome for you. There's enough awesome for you. There's enough awesome for me. We can all be awesome. So confidence comes from abundance, and it comes from knowing that everybody is fantastic. All right, let's talk about beliefs. Some of you are probably thinking, sounds great, Amber, but this isn't going to work for me. I can't just like positive think my way into feeling more confident. Just not that kind of a person. I've tried. So this is what your brain looks like. This is a scan of the neural pathways in someone's brain. So a thought is two neurons in your brain connecting. That's all it is. The more that you think a thought, the stronger that neural pathway gets. So you can see in this image, there are some neural pathways that are like pretty small, not very like defined. And then there are other neural pathways that are really dark and very well defined. That just means that this thought has been thought over and over and over and over. So I always tell the story. I want you to tell me the difference between the facts and the thoughts in this story. So here's my hand. My fingers are too short. My whole entire life, I've known that my fingers are too short. My piano teacher, when I was 5 years old, told me my fingers were too short and that I'd never be able to play the piano. Even when I rock climb, I feel like I can't hold on to things because my fingers are too short. Okay, so that's my story. So here's the definition of a fact. It's a definition of the fact. A fact is anything that everyone in the entire world would agree on. Everybody in the entire world. So in my story about my hand, what are the facts and what are the beliefs that I have? Can you guess? The fact is the thing that everybody in the entire world would agree on is that I have a hand. This is a hand. Everybody would agree about that. Not everybody in the entire world would agree that my fingers are too short. But I've thought that thought. I actually don't think that thought, for the record. I thought that thought so many times that that neural pathway is really, really strong. It feels like a fact to me. It's a belief. Like, no, you don't understand. I can go find 5 other people who can back me up. I can find as much evidence as you want. Just because you have proof or evidence doesn't mean it's a fact. You still have to ask yourself, would everyone in the world agree? So, thoughts over and over create beliefs. Beliefs create a state of being. So we're really comfortable with our old thoughts. That neural pathway has been going for a long, long time, and it's really hard to change. Like, I'm just not a consistent person. I'm just not a consistent person. I'm just not a consistent person. Because these thoughts feel so comfortable, you might not have a terribly compelling reason to get rid of them. Like, well, no, you don't understand. I'm just not a consistent person. I can give you tons of evidence for that. So let's take a look at the usefulness of self-confidence and see if we can make it compelling for you. By the way, I want to point out, these beliefs can go both ways. You can have a belief that isn't useful for you. You can also have a belief that is useful for you. All you have to do is keep thinking a thought over and over. I am consistent. I am consistent. I am consistent. I am consistent. That will strengthen the neural pathway, and then it will become a belief. So let's talk about how self-confidence is useful. Do you think it is? Is it compelling? You don't have to be loud and outgoing to be self-confident. Self-confidence means you have no problem admitting when you're wrong or that you might fail. I've been wrong tons of times. I've failed tons of times. It's likely to happen again, and that's fine. Still gonna move forward. The person in the group who is the most certain will influence the conversation the most. And self-confidence is not relying on your ability necessarily. So you don't have to be like, well, I've run 5 marathons before, so of course I can do it again. You can say, I've never run a marathon. I don't know if I can do it again. You're not relying on your ability. You're relying on the belief that you can handle anything. Remember, the worst thing that can happen is an emotion. So when you have self-confidence, you take more action, you talk to more people, you take more risks, and all of this leads to achieving more, of course. If you're taking more action, talking to more people, taking more risks, of course you're going to achieve more. And you can start small, just build it up slowly. Okay, so at this point you're like, all right, I'm ready. I want to be confident. I recognize that my thoughts and my beliefs aren't helping me get there, or maybe they are. Maybe there are some that are useful. Maybe there are some that aren't useful. How do you increase your self-confidence? Here are 5 ways. Way number 1, change your thoughts about yourself. Did you know that you can just pick a new thought? You don't have to ask yourself, is this thought true? You just have to ask yourself, is this thought useful? Is it useful to think that I'm not a consistent person? Or would it be more useful to think that I could be a consistent person? I also want to point out, you can find evidence for any thought. You can, and your brain will do it for you. So you can find evidence that you're not consistent, like, well, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, I didn't do that when I said I would 500 times. Just not a consistent person. You can also find evidence for the latter, or for the opposite. I consistently check my phone every time it dings. I consistently put my shoes on every time I leave the house. I consistently put the car in park before I get out of it. You can find evidence for any thought. So find one that's useful. Next, feel those feelings. The feelings that people are most afraid of are failure, disappointment. What if they didn't kill you? Which they haven't yet. Would you do things differently? Imagine what your life would be like if you were willing to feel failure and disappointment without fear. Kind of crazy, right? I also want to point out that your identity isn't fixed. The way that I know this is true is because you probably are not wearing the same clothes that you wore in high school. Do you look the same that you did in high school? Now, if you went to high school in the 90s, like the 90s clothes are coming back. However, arguably, you are not the same person that you were in high school. Unless maybe you're in high school right now, in which case you probably are. You can change your identity. So you can increase your self-confidence by considering the possibility of what you can create in the future. You're not the same person that you were 10 years ago. So what does the person 10 years from now look like? Kind of interesting, right? All right, next, be willing to feel fear. So a lot of people think that self-confidence means you don't feel fear. That's not the case at all. Fear does not inhibit self-confidence. Everyone who's self-confident feels fear. The unwillingness to feel fear is what inhibits self-confidence. So you have to be willing to feel the discomfort in order to feel self-confident. And your willingness to feel fear leaves you with nothing to lose. Yeah, I'm probably going to feel fearful. I felt that emotion before. Haven't died yet. Just going to try it again. And lastly, stop failing ahead of time. So my coach helped me discover that I was failing ahead of time. I was really worried that if I pushed myself and went outside of my comfort zone and went too high, that I would fail, and then I would drop really, really low, and I would feel really bad about myself. So what I did is I held myself back now so that just in case I went higher than low and felt bad about myself, I wouldn't hold myself back. If I hold myself back now and don't put myself out there, then I'm making sure that I'm not going to hold myself back in the future. Because that's what I'm really worried about. Isn't that funny? I'm failing ahead of time. I'm failing now by holding myself back so that I won't hold myself back in the future. Why not try it? What if I don't fail? What if things get awesome? Okay, so at this point you're like, all right, I'm ready. Help me find some new thoughts to think. Here are some beliefs that you can borrow. And feel free to screenshot this so that you have a record of these. Belief number 1, I was made for this. Belief number 2, there's no big deal. Belief number 3, I am capable. Belief number 4, the worst thing that can happen is a feeling. Belief number 5, my potential is limitless. Look at how far I've come. I've blossomed into this beautiful butterfly and I can't wait to see where I go next. Belief number 6, failure earns success. Belief number 7, the better I fail, the more confident I am. Do you believe that? Do you think that's true? The better you fail, the more confident you are. Okay, this is a sidetrack, but this is something I've been thinking about lately. I had one person say, think about something in your past that you were really afraid to do, like super terrified of, and then you did it. Are you still terrified of it? Most likely no, because you did it and you didn't die, so now it's like not that scary anymore. Think about that. You were so scared of it. So think about the things that you're so scared to do now that aren't going to be scary at all after you do them. What? I love it. Okay, so take action. Actions create capability, and capability creates confidence. Once you do something and don't die, you're going to feel confident that you can do it again and not die. And you'll know that you've made it when you only need your own approval to feel self-confident. One of my favorite authors, Jen Sincero, gives the analogy of not comparing yourself to anybody else. Just like, it's not worth it. You're totally unique, and it's not worth comparing yourself to anyone else. And the analogy she gives is, what if Led Zeppelin compared themselves to Mozart? And they're like, well, Mozart was super successful and he didn't have a drummer. We totally need to get rid of our drummer. That's so dumb, right? People are going to judge you. People are going to disagree with you. What if you didn't live in fear of that? You just know they're going to judge me. There are going to be haters out there, and that's fine. Probably just having a bad day. I'm just going to keep doing what makes me feel awesome and what makes me feel so good about myself. What do you think? All right. Thank you for sticking around. If you're interested in working with me, the things that I help my clients with are giving them insights into the thoughts and the beliefs that aren't useful for them. They tell me all their stories, and I'm like, okay, wait, let's look at that one. Let's look at that one. Are those getting you the results that you want? Secondly, I give them exercises that they can fill out and help them uncover what they want most in life and how they're going to get there. Third, I give them actionable steps to remove obstacles and become who they were always meant to be. So many times people feel like, this is so annoying. I feel like I'm self-sabotaging myself. Like, I know where I want to get, and I'm the only one standing in my way. And I help them stop standing in their way and become the person they were always meant to be. And lastly, I teach tactics and tools that you can use immediately. So it's not like, okay, we're going to go through tons and tons and tons of sessions, and then by the end, maybe you'll have a couple of things. Like, no, after your first session, you will have things you can use immediately. And you can use them when I'm around, when I'm not around. I teach you how to self-coach yourself. So if you're interested, you can claim your free coaching session. I give a free coaching session to everyone. And even if maybe you aren't ready to sign up for a whole coaching package right now, just sign up for a free session. I'm telling you, it's so eye-opening to see what's happening in your brain and to have somebody point it out to you. I have my own coach, and I am obsessed. Everybody needs a coach, in my opinion. So you can go to amberdeibert.com/free session. Thank you for showing up. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them for you. Feel free to post them in the Q&A, or you can post them in the chat. And if you don't have any questions and your mind is blown and you have so much to think about, thank you for coming. It's been such a treat. All right, everyone. Happy Friday. I hope it's amazing. I hope that your weekend is wonderful and that you feel more confident than you've ever felt. We'll see you.